Hello, everybody. Not amused here. Doing something a little bit out of the routine here. I wanted to give you my top 10 albums of 2025. My hope is to do this for uh, back until 2020 when I started doing this in my own personal time and just shared this list with different friend groups and such. Um, Sorry, I'm still getting over the cold. I don't think I'm going to do this list with movies or games because I just don't really have enough time to uh, divulge myself or to delve too deep into the realm of that stuff. Like, I don't spend enough time watching movies or playing games to really justify giving or presenting a top 10 list of my favorite movies I've seen. Back when I did rate movies, I usually have see like at least 70 or 80 a year, but I haven't done that since like COVID times, understandably. Nevertheless, usually I don't rank these albums, but because I kind of view this year in music so less favorably overall than pretty much the last 5 years. And what I mean by that is I feel less attached to more albums this year than previous years. So I'm finding myself not giving as much high scores to a lot of albums that I've listened to as previous years. And I think the consensus is that this was kind of like a down year in music outside of, probably hip hop, which had a great year, but in terms of everything else, in terms of pop, indie music, nothing really made too much of a splash. I'm gonna go down, and I have my top 10 albums down here. um, I just want to be sure I'm not butchering the names of the albums because I just haven't spent too much time devoted to actually writing a lot of these names and a lot of these song names. At number 10, oh, apologies, that's not even one I'm going to put at number 10. Number 10, I'm going to put the new Weekend album that came out very early in 2025, Hurry Up Tomorrow. I just want to preface by saying I have not seen the movie and I do not plan to see the movie because I don't want to do that to myself. So without the context of the movie, I still think this is a great album. I would give it like an 8.5 or a 9 some days. This is going to be the only album on my list where I'm going to say skip some songs. And usually when I make a list like this, all of my albums are full of no skips. But because I'm just so not that attached to so many albums this year, this is where it is. A lot of people are going to say Dawn FM is better than Hurry Up Tomorrow. I disagree. I think the lows of Dawn FM are a lot lower than this album, and the highs of this album are much higher than anything on Dawn FM outside of Out of Time, perhaps, or the intro track, Gasoline. But Hurry Up Tomorrow, I think, is a stuffed album that really, I mean, it's 22 songs with interludes. There really doesn't need to be more than like 16, 17 songs on here. I'm very much not attached to the last 3 songs on the album. For me, in the great context of things, I understand them, but for me, on a replay value, I do not like the last few songs on this album as much. That being said, great album, tons of bangers. The transitions are incredible. All the production is incredible I know Mike Dean is on here a lot. I know Omnitrix Point Never is on here a lot. And I really just love so many of these songs I love and replay so much. I think when I did my Apple Music replay, I listened to this song I listened to this album understandably the most in January and February than anything. Um, my three favorite songs, or I'll just do my favorite songs here, is definitely Niagara Falls, Baptized in Fear, Open Hearts, Wake Me Up, and I'm gonna say Enjoy the Show, because I think the future feature is just killer. But again, this is my only album on here that I would personally recommend you to skip songs. Anything else on here, I do not skip any part of the album. Uh, any guesses for number 9? Because I guarantee you, for the most part, you're going to be able to guess correctly. It is Blood Orange, Essex Honey. Blood Orange is someone that I'm not too familiar with their music, but I've heard a few cuts of their previous albums. I think it came out when I was traveling internationally this year, and my friend, one of my good friends, was like, "Hey, you should listen to this like immediately," and I'm like, yeah, I will." And then I just kind of just played my normal music. I think at the time I was listening to another one of these albums a lot, which is the Nina Geraci album that was just kind of spinning. So every song on Blood Orange, on Essex Honey here, is really softly tuned to really, it's not too jivey music. It's really soft spoken music, really music that kind of is, if I don't want to butcher the word, but it's really like angelic music. It's very densely layered songwriting and production, and it's not too aggressive on, on really hard hitting production. It's really easy listening. All the songs are fantastic to listen to. I think the pacing of the album works really well. Blood Orange is an artist that, is not stranger to having a lot of features on their albums, and I think all of the features here fit very well. No one really stands out in terms of being forgettable or awkward. I mean, this is just a beautiful album front to back. Strangely enough, I feel like looking at my other albums here, I feel like they're more beautiful albums that I recommend, but this one is just a beautiful album. Can listen to any song at any time, pretty much. This album I would give a 9, for sure. In the middle of the pack here is where it starts to get interesting, because when I shared this with friends, I usually don't order them anyway, but I think I had Deftones at 8, which is definitely not going to happen. I think I'm going to switch that to later on, and I'm going to put the new Japanese Breakfast album on there for Melancholy Brunettes. Melancholy Brunettes and Sad Women. This album came out, what is it, like kind of early on in the year. There's not too much I can say about this album. Compared to Jubilee, the last album that really put Japanese Breakfast on everybody's radar, this album is a lot more low-key, a lot slower tempo songs, a lot of more kind of low-energy songs, but I feel that she's, trying to be Michelle Zauner, the lead singer, is just, her songwriting is just so incredible that I could honestly just listen to her sing and listen to her lyrics on as something as ridiculous as like a Playboy Cardi or like a Young Thug beat, because like it's really that beautiful. This album really did not get any love whatsoever in the year-end list, and it's really a shame, because I feel as though people, um, wanted it to be kind of like a Jubilee 2, or a lot of people had an opinion that, it was boring, or that it wasn't as high energy, and that's not what they wanted, because a lot of their introduction to Japanese breakfast was Jubilee, which like half of the songs up on that album were pretty like upbeat, pretty vibrant songs. Um, you know, this album has songs that are a lot more stripped back in terms of production, in terms of length, and really in terms of layered production, I would say. There's a lot less going on with this album on the surface compared to, I think, any of her albums for sure, but the simplicity, the lyrics, and I'm just a sucker for the production. Pretty much, I'm a huge Japanese breakfast fan, and I really, in my eyes, they and Michelle, I don't really see them doing wrong any time, any way, anyhow, anytime soon. By the way, read her book that came out in, I want to say 2023 or 2024, maybe, or even 2022. Beautiful book that really goes in more on the loss of, kind of childhood and not stolen identity, forgotten identity, and grief and loss amid the loss of her mother and the absentness of her father. That her previous albums touched way more upon than this album for sure. But I love the direction this album is going in. I really can't complain too much about this album because I really think it is just beautiful to listen to. My favorite songs would be, I love Honey Water, I love Lita, I love Picture Window, and I love Winter in LA. Those are my favorite songs for sure. And Men in Bars. So half the album is in my favorite song list. So take that as you may. 765, I think, out of the most difficult ones to do, because I know my top 4. Scratch that. I know my top 5. So 7 and 6 are muddy. Let's see. Number 7, I think I'm going to put Little Simz' new album, Lotus. If you don't know Little Simz, she is a wonderful musician from the UK, and ever since I heard her on like a Gorillaz song back in whenever Humans came out, I immediately listened to like any music she had, and it was just fantastic. Shout out to her 2021 album, Sometimes I Might Be Introvert, which I think was my favorite album of 2021. I could be mistaken. Lotus is another album where, she's reflecting on a lot of issues, most notably betrayal and sadness because of the split from her longtime producer, who was worked with her almost like the entire majority of her career, really. And with that goes another collaborator she used to work with a lot, Cleo Sol, because Cleo Sol is married to the producer. Here's the tea: the producer did her wrong. She's coming to terms with a lot of that and reflecting on this a lot on this album. Her lyrics are on point as always. The beats are snappy, catchy, not overly loud, not super duper forgettable, nothing like that. It's really not as down in the depths or kind of like off tempo as what was that? No Thank You was, or really as upbeat and classical as Sometimes I Might Be Introvert was. But for the more trade off on like the moody, darky production, the more murky production, the simple touches on the production, really contribute to an album that is really, I say this word a lot, but all these albums are just so beautiful. It's just incredible music here, and I would expect nothing less from Little Sims. Just absolutely fantastic. I don't think I said my previous rating for Melancholy or Blood Orange. Oh, I did for Blood Orange. For Melancholy, it's a 9. For Lotus, Black, for Little Sims, for Lotus, I would give it also a 9. I see a lot of people giving like 0.2s and like 0.3s to stuff, like when people review music or movies. I'm like, how? I don't really understand the scale of rating you're doing things. I don't like it's. I feel like it's either half a point or a point, and I fail to see any justification that like that criticism is actually like genuine, besides arbitrary, just putting like a 0.2 instead of a 8.0 or an 8.5. I can't get behind that scale, and I really don't think it contributes to anything productive, which is why this is sitting at a 9. Number 6, the new Nina Geraci album. Electronic pop, electronic music here. Really took me by surprise. I have not heard any of her music before listening to this album. And sorry, my favorite Little Sims songs. I'm really not keeping my head on straight when I'm doing this. Favorite songs would be Free, Enough, Blood, and Blue. Yeah, the Nina album is absolutely fantastic. It's so vibrant and lively with all the electronic beats. Typically, I'm not a huge fan of EDM, dance, electronic outside of Daft Punk, Nine Inch Nails, Porter Robinson, a handful of other artists from here and there. Hudmo, that kind of stuff. I typically am not a huge fan of electronic music, but not only is there a lot of layers to a lot of these songs, the songwriting is poppy, sticks with you, it leaves an impact, and the production is just, whoa! Like somebody's hitting you with a speaker over the head. It's just really intimidating, but at the same time, just refreshing, if that makes sense. This, more so than anything on this list, I feel like this album is pure vibes. Favorite songs are, I think it's got to be the first 3 songs: London Song, iPod Touch, and F My Computer. Number 5 is a toss-up between these 2 albums, but eventually I think I'm going to put the new Deftones album at number 5 here. Nina's also a 9, by the way. Private Music by Deftones. Deftones, kind of like Nina Geraci, I'm not a huge explorer into the hard rock, the metal genre as a whole. You know, Nine Inch Nails, Deftones, and occasionally What My Friends Play. Nothing leaves too much of an impact on me. I've listened to Deftones since I was about 10 years old. My brother introduced me to them. I think the Koi no Yokan, their album from like 2012, is absolutely phenomenal. And the last few albums by Deftones have kind of missed the mark for me a little bit. They're good, but I haven't really replayed them that much since they came out. Private Music, however, really just doesn't pull its punches at all. It's, you know, Chino, the lead singer, is just still fantastic, such a unique voice. The production is so heavy, it's what you would expect from a Deftones album, for better or for worse. I say that because a lot of the criticism around Deftones is that a lot of their albums sound similar despite the enough time existing between their releases to really make more of an impact in terms of their their lasting imprint on the genre or music as a whole. A lot of people are gonna reflect back on Deftones' early music the best, but I think this Private Music might be their best album since, I don't know, since White Pony maybe, because early on I didn't like it more than Koi no Yokan, but I think now I do, and I like it more than Diamond Eyes, so I think it's my favorite Deftones album in 25 years, which is a crazy thing to say. Yeah, this album just absolutely rocks, and I cannot recommend it enough. Favorite songs are Locked Club, Souvenir, CXZ, Milk of the Madonna, Cut Hands. I think my favorites on this change all the time, but this album is definitely pretty much a 9.5 out of 10. Okay, we'll get into it now. Number 4, Saya Gray. Saya. This album snuck up on me. I listened to it in November, and I could not put it down, pretty much. It was my new album obsession ever since one of these bad boys down here. I kind of compare her to... like, she is like the gap in my music listening habits, where usually where Phoebe Bridgers usually is, where Lucy Dacus is sometimes. She has outstanding singer-songwriter energy. The production is just so unique, and I don't know. I also see like Phoebe Bridgers kind of mixed with Billie Eilish in terms of the production as well, and in terms of the delivery and tone of her voice, the cadence of her voice. On some songs, really kind of reminds me of Billie Eilish. That I'm not huge about Billie Eilish as well, but I mean every song on this album is just incredibly moving, incredibly beautiful. I just feel like the songwriting is so wonderful, and this album really just took me by surprise. This album is a 9.5 out of 10 for me. Favorite songs would be Exhaust the Topic, HBW, and Line Back 22 maybe. Again, my favorites on this change all the time. Really recommend this. My number 3 album is The Passionate Ones by Nourished by Time. Someone who I've never listened to, never had an idea of, never heard on the internet before, but he was popping up on all the year-end lists in December, and I thought, hey, like I said at the beginning, I didn't connect with a lot of music this year, so I'm really gonna investigate and listen to a lot of albums that are on these year-end lists, and I still didn't connect with so many of them. But Nourished by Time, this R&B soul / kind of pop elements album, is really just incredible. If you asked me 2 weeks ago, I probably would have said it's down here. Today, as I've listened to this album like a dozen times through already, and I keep going back to certain songs. Really just a phenomenal album. The songwriting, the lyrics are depressing, sad, inspiring, hopeless, and also at the same time a little bit melancholy, happy. The production is really inspired. It can go from simple strings to kind of a little mix of synths sometimes to, I think there's some crazy strings in the back half of this album that are really cool as well. And there's a lot of piano work as well. This album is absolutely incredible. And if you were to ask me again about my favorite albums of 2025 in like 2 months, this might go to number 1 or number 2, because it's that good. This album for me is a 10 out of 10. Like the last 3 albums on this list, my favorite songs change every single time I listen to this. I think it'd be easier to tell you what my least favorite songs are, and I think it's 925 and The Passionate Ones. Those are my least favorite songs. Everything else, I love. Don't get me wrong, they're my least favorite songs, but they are not skips. No way, sir. Yeah, just incredible, breathtaking music. Yeah, this album's a 10. Yeah, I can't say much more about that. This next album might be cheating, but it also might not, because I saw like EPs and mixtapes on people's favorite albums of the year, and I'm like, okay, you people, I don't classify EPs and mixtapes as albums of the year. I don't know. I just have this certain distinction. Like, if I were to include like mixtapes or whatever an album not is, you'd probably see Pink Pantheress at number 10 here, because I've jived with that a little bit more than the Weeknd thing. But the way it's described as a mixtape and it's not an album, I go in with different expectations to as in terms of what the project is and what is encompassing the landscape, the songwriting, everything around it. It's very hard for me to get past that distinction of, a mixtape is not an album, but maybe one day I'll get past that. I don't know. Because I have favorite mixtapes of all time, but I wouldn't classify them as albums. If we were to talk about projects, sure, then I could see an argument being made, and I would put like different EPs by like Yes on this list too, because that was a killer EP. Regardless, I'm putting a video game soundtrack at number 2, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 by Lorien Testard. Look, I'm not going to talk too much about this, because the internet is ablaze with everything Expedition 33, from the Game Awards to the stupid discourse around it, which is for the most part not valid. The music is beautiful. The music is absolutely awe-inspiring, breathtaking, just brings a tear to your eye. Holy crap, this is the best video game soundtrack I've heard since Kingdom Hearts 2, maybe? Like, I'm gonna be listening to this in 10, 20 years, and like the Kingdom Hearts music. I just can't get enough of this album. the variety on it, how everything is just so amazing, so perfect. I mean, it's also impossible to describe what my favorite songs are. I'm gonna look through this very quick. The Serene Robe de Jour, I'm probably butchering this pronunciation, and the next few ones I repeat, that's an amazing song. I think it's Visage's, one of the Aria Pour ones. The shorter one is just beautiful. Mael, Alicia, Until Next Life. This album is incredible. 10 out of 10. Love it. Won't stop listening to it. You've probably heard a million different things about this piece of media already. I'm going to shut up. Number one, it's obviously the new Clips album. Wow, I'm drawing a blank. It's not Almost Dry. It's Let God Sort 'Em Out. My least favorite thing about this album is the cover art. Besides that, I absolutely love every single decision, every single song, every single hook, verse, every single choice on this album, to me, is a 10 out of 10. I cannot stop listening to this album. I think Pharrell is amazing, although he's done some questionable things lately. His production is great. I don't mind the auto-tune hooks from him. I think he still sounds great. Every feature on here is insane. Everybody telling you that Kendrick has the best feature on this album is either in denial or lying to you, because I would probably say it's Nas or even Tyler, because those guys are incredible and really make a name for themselves on here. I mean, this album is front to back layered with such sick rhymes, such just disgusting, amazing beats and samples that I just cannot get enough of it. The acronym songs, incredible. Really, when Ace Trumpets came out, the first single, I was like, okay, I'm vibing with this, but I'm not super impressed. And then I think So Be It was next, and I did the Eric Wormheim, Tim and Eric gif where his mind explodes. Everything connected for me with So Be It. And when this album came out, I think on my Apple Music replay, it was the album I listened to the most in July, in August, and September. And then, I think in, what was it? So July, August, September, and in October, I think I listened to POV the most out of any song that month, which is crazy. This album is incredible. Every single choice on here is a 10 out of 10. I have no complaints besides the cover art, which is kind of mid. Everything on here is a 10. This is a 10. This is a 10. This is the best hip-hop album of 2025. Cannot wait for the sequel to come out in 2027 or 2028 or 2037, knowing the pace of Malice. Again, from album 6 to 1, my favorites change every single time I listen to this album. The ones I come back to the most are POV, So Be It, Mike Tyson Blow to the Face, FICO, and Let God Sort 'Em Out slash Chandeliers. I'm so excited I can't speak. Okay, this has been my top 10 albums of 2025. Please comment, what were your favorite albums of 2025? I'm genuinely curious because this was such a divisive year for me in terms of music. So many albums that I've listened to, I'm like, it's a good album, wouldn't put it anywhere near a top 10 list in my opinion. And there were a lot of albums like that for me this year, more so than any other year. It was crazy. So that being said, please let me know your thoughts. What would you change on this list? What are your favorite albums? I'm genuinely curious. This is such an interesting music year that I don't know how else to go about it. Besides that, I hope this was a nice change of pace from me being Fusion Fall centric, 99% of the time. And I want to do a little, sprinkle this stuff in a little bit more often than not. Regardless, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Ta-ta!